Hello! And hello again.
Hello.
What's up? How are you guys? Welcome to the 16th episode of the VoiceIt Show. I am Kanak. Where are you, Funky? Oh, yeah. There's Funky and there's
I'm here.
Becca up there. Hello, hello.
Yay.
How
Hi.
are you guys? Oh, look,
Really
everybody in the
good.
comments. Hi, 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 everybody. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you, everybody in the comments section, everybody watching right now. Welcome to the VoiceIt Show. Thank you for tuning in and making time. It's fab to have you all. And if you haven't yet subscribed, please subscribe to our channel. And let's get going. Today is awesome because
Yes.
we have with us a man who breathes rock and roll, who lives rock and roll. He is the owner, the CEO of Bellyache Records, or fondly known as within the Roxy Guitar Army circle, Bellyache Records.
Yes.
He has been a long-time bassist for the band the Grande Nationals. He is also currently working, and he's a major part of the Ryan Roxy's System 12 guitar method project that is going on full throttle currently. And of course, he's the uh, operations manager at the Rock City Music Company. And man, it's fantastic, and he has such a cool background. So we can't wait to talk with him and everybody. So let's bring him on and please welcome Scotty Hagen.
Hey guys.
Yay.
Hey.
Yay!
Welcome. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining us. How are you, Scotty?
I'm doing good, thank you. Is
Thank you
everyone
so
else
much.
well?
Very
Yeah.
well. We are cool and so excited. Thank you so much once again. And how has the year been? This year.
This year in particular, it's been a quiet year for Bellyache Records. You know,
Balachi Records.
yeah, we definitely usually put out a couple releases every year, but with all the shutdowns and the setbacks and the lack of shows and touring, everything involved, there's
Mhm.
less records on our end coming out. We have to play it safe and be careful. But we did just announce our 70th release is coming out.
70th release.
Hopefully by the end of October. Slasher Dave's
Sure.
The Horrors of Hell House.
How cool is that?
That will be
It's
fun.
fantastic.
Dave is a top tier artist on the label. We sell so many Slasher Dave records, and we are really excited to get the next record out. That was actually the release we put out from him last year.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's the Haunting 7-inch. But the Horrors of Hell House is a compilation of all of his digital singles that he released pretty much last Halloween season. His records are always
Oh,
definitely good for the autumn and fall season.
that's fab. That's fab. And tell us this story right in the beginning. We want to know how did this Balachi come from? Where did
The
the
name,
origin of Balachi?
the
Yeah,
the
the name.
Bellyache name comes from Tommy Hendrickson. And
Oh,
back in 2014, Ryan Roxie and
mm-hmm,
I were releasing Roxy 77's the Amerisweet EP. And
mm-hmm,
we timed it perfectly for the start of the Motley Crue tour. It was the first tour they did with Motley, and they were performing up in Bay City, Michigan, and that's about 2 hours from. That's actually where I'm originally from. Is Bay City, and from a small city called Essexville that is adjacent to
mm-hmm.
Bay City. So
Okay.
I traveled up there. It was the third show of the tour. They were doing 3 solo shows, 3 Cooper shows before they started the Motley tour, and I was taking Ryan his copies of the record. And when I get there, I kept hearing this Bellyache thing, and I'm like, what are these guys talking about? They know it's Bellyache, right? And then I asked Ryan, and he starts telling me about how when he showed, the images of the record to Tommy prior to my arrival, he looks at it and he's like, "What's this Bellyache Records?" Because the logo was like this slime logo, and he just looked at it and maybe he thought it said Bellyache. So they were talking about it, and they built it up, and that was like Nita Strauss's third show, and I met her at that show, and she even was like, "Oh, you're Mr. Bellyache," and I'm thinking like they're building it up like I'm this big, like I should be in a suit with a cigar or something like that. But the name came from Tommy, and then it just kind of stuck within all the members of the band and members of the crew, and then eventually like the fans. Yeah. And and it's one of the first nicknames I think I ever had that I found acceptable. It's like it's a beloved nickname. I hear it and I don't have a problem with it whatsoever.
Right. No, it's really fun. And how did you begin working with Ryan? When did you guys meet?
I originally met Ryan back in 1996 on his very first Alice Cooper tour. It was in a suburb of Detroit called Clarkston, Michigan. Alice was touring with the Scorpions, and I was friends with Alice's former assistant Brian Nelson. So there was always like meet and greets and after show passes available. So after the show, I met Ryan, and I was drawn to Ryan because he was different for Alice's band. After seeing Alice in the 80s. Like the late 80s, like the Kane Roberts era, and then into the early 90s when everything was still kind of in that sort of like glam rock, hard rock, era of music. Ryan was like this guy that kind of looked like he came out of the 70s. He reminded me, he kind of reminded me of like a slightly glammed out version of David Cassidy. And I only to find out later he was a big fan. So, I thought he was a great addition to the band. I thought it was a really unique combination of guitar tones and sounds and styles with Ryan and Reb Beach. So I met him at the show, and I would see Ryan at a lot of the shows at the meet and greets, from there on, but we never like struck up a real like big friendship. And then he was out of the band for a few years. And then when he came back to the band, right around the time he came back, my label had been very successful in the Detroit area with all the Detroit artists I've worked with. And at one point I thought, I'm going to approach Ryan, maybe Chuck, and see if they just want to release a single with the band, something easy, without a large commitment to, just to see how it goes. And I was going to a run of Alice Cooper shows. There was like 3 in a row around the Midwest. And I approached Ryan in Sylvania, Ohio, or it was actually prior to the show at Roxy's Rocken Rolla parking lot, and said, "Hey, my name's Scotty. I've met you dozens of times in the past. Blah blah blah. I have a record label. Would you like to put out a single?" And we, and he was, he seemed kind of interested. And then the next night, I was there again at another show, gave him the same spiel. And by the third night, he was like, "Hey, there's my label guy." And we were going to do a single, but he already had tracks of it ready for the Amerisweet EP. So that was in 2013, and then we worked on all the aspects of that right up through like the winter of 2014 to plan it out for that big Motley Crue tour, and everything fell right into place. And so we did this version where you got mixes done by the guy that recorded the record in Sweden, and then the other, and then on the A side you get the mixes done by Tommy Henriksen. So you get like an American version and a Swedish version. So yeah, so it was cool, and there was a lot of fans like, "Oh, I like this version of this song, I like this one and that," and it was really cool. I think we worked well together, and I went to a ton of Cooper shows over the course of that Motley Crue tour, and we sold a lot of records, and that led up to doing the Imagine Your Reality LP, which was another fun project, and we went all out with that record. Right, really cool. Yeah, with the packaging on that one, I don't know if any of you guys own a copy on vinyl or have seen it. We did a standard CD edition, but when we put out that record, Ryan initially asked if, hey, can we do 4 different covers? And being the label, I kind of go, oh, it's kind of pricey. It's like we'd have to order a lot of jackets. We want to keep this limited. So I suggested doing this cover where the fan gets all 4 covers with 1 cover. So you you would buy 1 record that looked like this, and you got this die cut jacket. Wow. And with the die cut jacket, so if you wanted to see, if you got the blue vinyl, you could have the blue picture showing, or the red one. Wow. Right. Or, and if you got the white vinyl, it had the white one showing. So
Man.
we thought that was a cool way, you know, that way that each fan, you know, could look at have their record, have their own Roxie reality, and that would be, you know, that was kind of like one of our big selling points. Plus, we in every record we put in a signed poster.
Oh yeah.
You know, and then for the people that don't really play their vinyl that much, we put in a CD copy with a download code. So you got, you know, there was no excuse not to buy it. You know, it had everything in it, and then even on the inside,
a whole package.
There was a one more cover, the Vic Shelfont.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Photo.
That's a great photo, yes.
And that was on the inner sleeve, and then on with the lyrics we put in. There's with the lyrics. You know, I had Ryan write up a little blurb about each song, like what wow. You know, any background. You know, and so they gave people something to read. You know, because that's what he and I both enjoyed about liking vinyl and loving vinyl was when you would buy a record, right. You know, back in the 70s or the 80s, you had something to look at, and you didn't skip from track to track because you drop the medial, you leave it on, and you just let it play. So you're listening to it, yes, and then all of a sudden, 45 minutes later, you're ready to start over again. So
yeah, wow,
yeah. True. So you know, I wanted to do something really limited with that, and we sold out of those. You know, it's like we've talked, you know, possibly about doing another pressing, you know, more standard version. So anyone that bought that first pressing that got that edition, or if they got the limited purple one where we featured Vic's photo as the main photo on the front with a purple hue to the cover, that right. You know, if someone got one of those, then like those are long gone. And now, you know, if we do another version, it's probably just gonna be a standard jacket, you know, one photo with the inner sleeve on black vinyl or something like that. So that's, you know, it makes it cool and collectible.
Excellent.
Yeah,
man, that is one collectible and so cool. And like, do you guys like come up with your own graphics as well as a company? It
depends. It depends on the artist. There's if I'm doing a record with Slasher Dave or with Voyager 3, those guys, like Dave always does all his own artwork. And so I think one thing that makes his records so cool is that you got this awesome music, and then he knows exactly how to capture what he wants for his records. So he'll do all his design, and I've had him do some designing for a few other artists. And then I've had another artist. I've had a few people that would just lay out graphics for me. In fact, the person that laid out all those graphics for Ryan's record was a girl named Annette DeLorean. And if you've ever seen the Anna video for the song Anna from Roxy 77, it's a cartoon. Yeah. And she did all that animation. That's all her design. It's really fun. I mean, and she does really cartoony stuff. But she's also a great graphic designer. So I always have people I can kind of call on when I need something done, unless the artist walks in and says, "This is my jacket. This is the art. This is the art we're going with." And I'll look it over. And there's times I've had to say, you know what, I'd change this. I wouldn't do this or that. And sometimes there's a little push and pull, but always in the end, the artist looks at it and goes, "This is perfect. This is exactly what we wanted." So I've always felt that you can make a top shelf, you know, top tiered record that looks just as good as any major label on an independent label budget. And there's things that I think major labels overlook that, you know, when they put out records, that I can't believe it when I buy a record and I pull out just a plain white sleeve and there's nothing on the inside. It's like, really? I spent $25 on this? Gotta give them something, you know? Like we did with Ryan's record. When I put out the latest album from Voyager 3, we did a record last year called War Mask. And, you know, we've done a couple Slasher Dave records where we put masks on the inside, like, you know, cut out masks with a string. So when we did this record, you know, we're like, and Dave did this artwork for them. I said, you know, let's do something fun. And Steve, the synth player, who's the main guy in the band, said, "I want to put a mask on the inside." So we did this mask.
Oh, wow.
But you notice the lenses are 3D lenses. So you can look at this print on the inside, or the credits are in 3D.
Oh, it's in 3D.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So that's like, you know, you put something additional in there just to give, you know, just to make it that much more fun. And you know, the music's already awesome, but then you got that on top of it. And then we keep the pricing similar to what a major label would charge for their basic record, you know, and you give them a download. So there's no excuse not to to buy the
But,
record.
yeah.
You know, you can still download it and take it wherever you want.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's true.
in an interview or somewhere I read in an article that when you personally buy a record or something, you like generally like the whole package. And is that what inspires you to make it, to bring the same thing in your company's records as
Absolutely.
well?
Absolutely. I would never put out a record. I've always said I'll never release a record that I wouldn't want to personally buy. Like I always want it to be a reflection of what I want in the records. And it's, you know,
Right.
and it's not just about the packaging, you know, even the music as well. When I release release a record for an artist, I gotta love it first. And I would never invest my money into something that I didn't stand behind. I've had bands come to me that were fairly, you know, like, you know, bands that had decent draws or followings, but if I wasn't like a big fan of their music, you know, I wouldn't just put it out just to sell records. I've got to love it all the way around. So I always make sure that the packaging is right up there. It's got to be as good as the music. And if that packaging looks awesome, then I can assure you that the music you're going to hear is going to kick ass.
Yeah, that's an
That's
amazing
so
thing
cool.
to do. So tell us a little more about Bellyache Records. Like how and when did you start it?
I started the label with my friend Michelle back in about 2004, 2005. We had a company that we started called the Bellyache Candy Shop. And we had this grand idea of having a candy store. And that was it. Like, let's, but we wanted to make it. And of course, between the two of us, we want it to be fun. Wow, that is an old picture. We want it to be a lot of fun. So we had all these ideas. But the one thing that we both had in common to get money, to raise money, to get it going was I played in the Grande Nationals. I had worked in record stores. I had a passion for making, you know, good products. She was a concert promoter and a concert producer with a company that eventually became Live Nation in Detroit. So we knew a lot of people, we knew a lot of bands. So we thought, well, let's put out a compilation of bands doing songs that are kind of candy themed. And some of them were written for the record. Some of them were cover songs. And, you know, most of the time when someone writes a song that's candy themed, it's probably going to actually, you know, be about sex instead. And, or unless it legitimately is about candy. So we put out this CD called The Sweet Sounds of Detroit, Volume 1. And that kid, the chocolate bar kind of looks familiar. But we got, you know, we put 18 songs on the CD and we went for like, you know, all these bands that we knew that were a popular draw in the area, that bands that we were both friends with and fans of. And we did a release show for this and it was huge. You know, like the venue that we had it, I think held about 500 people and it was sold out.
Wow.
We could, you know, and plus at that time, that venue sold their tickets through Ticketmaster. So people were coming in with tickets to the show and it's got the name of our show on it. And we're like, oh, this rules, you know, here we're seeing ticket stubs with our event, and that set the bar for everything that we did after that. So every release show we put on had to be huge. You know, we had to have some, you know, we had to give some people like, you know, a reason to come. Either we stacked the bill with great bands, and Detroit always had a really good, like a killer music scene. You know, there was bands that were filling bars and clubs playing original music that didn't play anywhere else, but they would had huge followings here. So everything we put out had to was set to that standard. And we got to a point where we were tired of seeing people come in and like 300 people, but then not enough people were buying the product from us. So then we started working it out with a band where you came to our show, you paid $10 to get in. We would give them a voucher for the CD or the record, and they would turn that in. And so everyone left with the record. And then we worked it out with the band. So that way we could always pay off our investment into what we have, you know, what we're selling for them. And it's amazing, like how many people love that format, because you're kind of getting an LP that's normally $20 for $10. Plus you get to see the band, you get to see whoever else is playing with them. And, you know, the bands are happy that there's 250 people walking out with their record that night, as opposed to 20, you know, because so many people are more concerned about where their next drink was going to come from, you know?
Yeah. It's amazing for the artists as well, I guess. right?
Yeah, oh, definitely. There's never been any problems with any of them either, because I said, here's the deal. You're not going to get paid tonight, but 250 people are going to leave with your record. And everyone was all for that. They're like, we want people to have the music. And that's what we want too. It's like, yeah, we want to recoup our investment, but we also want to make sure that people are, have music to take with them. And so many people, I'd get people that would get drunk at the shows and they'd forget to bring in their voucher to the table, to the merch stand. And luckily enough, I was working for a record store at the time that, was centrally located. So I always would, have to give out a few copies after the fact. They paid to get in. I wanted to make sure they got their record. So I always felt that was a good way of doing that. And once we started doing that method, we never turned back. It was like, this is the way to do it. Because if you just go, you set up at your release show and you just say the record's $20 and you expect all those people to come buy it, that's not going to happen.
True. It's so fun.
So, but when we started all that, it eventually got to the point where the records were doing better than what we were doing with the candy. We were going for like obscure candy brands that existed in the United States that you didn't typically find at the checkout counters, because there's this whole thing called slotting, where all the big candy companies, like if you go into a department store and you're going to check out and they always have a candy stand, they have all the biggest names there because they pay to be there. Yeah. So Michelle and I would always talk about, remember this candy bar? Remember this one, that one? We'd name off all these crazy candy bars that were long forgotten about, but they still existed. So we would put together package bundles and we would sell them on our website of all those brands. And we did that to the point where the record label started getting bigger and we didn't want to stop doing candy. So that's when Michelle and I became candy makers as opposed to just candy sellers. So we started making our own candy bars to go with whatever band we were selling a record for. And I still have some of these candy bars. And we would, we became our own chocolatiers. We make these limited edition bars. And one of the first ones we made was for a band called The Go. They were popular. Jack White from the White Stripes used to be in the band. He wasn't while we were working with them, but they did this kind of a kids single called Knock Knock Banana. And so the first candy bar we made was called the Knock Knock Banana Crunch. And this was a yellow chocolate with banana chips in it. And the fans were like, and the artwork kind of ties in with the 45 that we released. And the fans were like, this is incredible. And it didn't taste too bad. So we were kind of proud of that. We thought, well, maybe we'll keep doing this. And then it grew. And we ended up doing, like, there was a band called The Octopus that we put out a record for. And they were very much into like mythical type things. And, so we did the Octo Bar. That was basically a mysterious candy bar, created at the pyramids or my kitchen, That's
cool.
And then when we did, there was a band called Duende and they always use they always use Olay as one of their catchphrases. And we did this bar for them called the Olay Bar. And we did a spicy hot chocolate with spicy almonds. And I love this artwork. I always thought it was so cool. This was another Annette DeLorean creation. This was a lot of fun. And then we did there was a band called Pewter Cub that we released a record for, and they wanted to do a cookie. And I'm like, it's totally possible. So we did what we called the Cub Claw. And, the Cub Claw came in a package like this, but it was a oatmeal cookie half dipped in chocolate with almond claws on it.
Wow. Yeah.
And they were good. I can't believe this thing doesn't have mold on it, so we must have done something right. But, during the course of everything, we did a bunch of other, candy bars. Like for the band The Mugs, we did the Ugly Mug Bar because they always claimed to be the self-proclaimed ugliest band on the planet, which they weren't. They're all cool guys. They make great music. I made a lot of fun records with them. Then we did another one called
My mouth is watering right now.
Here's the Out of This World Bar. Is it candy? Is it from space? What is it? I'll tell you what it is. Whoa. It's mint green chocolate.
What?
Whoa.
Yeah. So we did a bunch of things like that were a lot of fun. We did one for an artist named Troy Gregory that I used to play bass in his band, and he wanted something vampire themed. So I did this thing called the Fang Bar, and the first run of Fang Bars had blood in them. It was actually like a raspberry filling, but if you didn't eat it within a month, it dried out relatively quick. So when we made another run of candy bars for them, we put almond slivers that were supposed to be fangs inside the bar.
Wow.
Oh my
What a-
god.
And then, are you guys familiar with the candy nerds? Do they have nerds in your parts of the world?
Not really.
It's kind of like they're like these
Not
little
actually.
rock pebble like shaped candies that
Uh-huh.
they're kind of like sweet and sour. And when you eat
Oh,
them,
okay.
they crunch, but they're, you know, they start out one flavor, but they taste like something else on the inside. And we did one for a comic book shop called the Comic Book Nerd Bar, made with real nerds.
Yeah.
Like this
You're
nerd
the
going
new
into the
Willy
meat
Wonka.
grinder.
That's
Right,
true,
right, right,
Ryan. It's right.
Right.
But we actually put nerd candies inside. So that was something that, you know, another one that people were like, oh, that's going to sounds disgusting, nerds and chocolate. But then when people were eating them at the comic book store, they were like, oh, holy shit, these are great. I'm like, yeah, well, I wouldn't make something that I wouldn't eat, you know?
I honestly think you should sell them and, you know, come back with this because, oh my god, that's so
Yeah.
cool.
Thank you.
And
Thank
please
you.
send this to me, to Funky and Ken, because, you know, we
He-
live
you know,
apart and,
You know,
you
I
know, we
really
can
think
have it.
That
He
was
knows he's
something.
going on a kid show, so he's got all the chocolates and candies out.
Well, you know, it was fun because we did a lot of these bars for, you know, a number of artists, and they were all like, every time we'd step at a release show, we would have the candy bars at the show, and people started showing up for those so they could get one of the bars,
Wow.
just so they could throw it in their freezer and keep it some sort of limited edition piece to go along with it.
Wow.
There was
Right.
a few of them that we were really proud of, and
Wow.
a couple of my favorites were the ones that weren't even band themed. Like, since we were Michigan based, we did the $2 bar, and you know, deer are very plentiful in the state of Michigan, and in Michigan we have, you know, our state's divided by an upper peninsula and a lower peninsula, and so I figured peanut butter,
Oh my god, it
chocolate.
doesn't end.
And that's my favorite. Like peanut butter, I'm actually a bigger peanut butter fan than I am of chocolate. So when I made this, I used to sell these like on the side to like coworkers at other places I worked at. And they're like, "You got any more of them $2 bars?" You know, like they loved them, and that was one of my favorites. You know, the other one that we did that was Michigan themed was the Grizzly Bar. This was another Michigan themed one where it was chocolate and
Look at that.
pretzel twigs.
Wow.
You know, but it was just like, you know, pieces of
Right.
pretzel. This was a good one too, because you got that sweet and salty at the same time.
I'm
You guys
looking
weren't
at
expecting all this, were you?
Wow, no.
Man, that's
I'm
truly
seriously,
not,
I
man.
was
It's so-
looking at the
it's a
drawings
delicious
of the
thing.
bars,
Mhm.
and it must be
yeah.
hard to do them. You know,
This-
I do drawings, so I was looking at this, and every bar you do a different one, and of course, but they are amazing. They really
you.
do look incredible.
Those-
Congratulations for that.
Thank you.
Seriously.
The bulk of those designs
Wow.
that you saw were done by Annette DeLorean, who did a ton of like artwork for us.
Yeah.
We always had to do release show posters too. That's always a big thing, because when, you know, if you're putting on a show around town, you got to hit every record store, every place that will let you put up a show poster.
Sure.
So those always had to be eye catching as well. And her artwork at that time period captured the essence of everything we were doing with all the rock bands, because a lot of the bands that we were putting out 45s for kind of came up out of the same scene as that the White Stripes did. So they were all well known, and we sold, you know, a lot of records from every one of them. But when we would do these things, like, you know, the posters and the candy bars, that just made it that much more fun. I mean, seeing people,
course.
you know, at the end of the night at a show when they're hungry and they just start biting into their candy bar because they've got nothing. You know, you're at a bar and there's just beer, you know, or booze,
Right.
and you know, you see people. Would see the wrappers laying on the floor. It just, you know, to me that was success.
Yeah.
Right. Definitely. Did you guys ever make to that All Candy Expo in Chicago?
I'm sorry. Oh, the All Candy Expo is the reason why I'm doing any of this. Like,
Exactly.
I remember one day I got an email from Michelle, and she says, "Hey, and I was working at this record store, and she said, 'Do you guys sell candy there?' And I was like, 'No, but we've talked about putting in a candy counter. Why? What's up?' And she says, 'Well, if you did, we could go to this.' And so she sent me this link, and it was for the All Candy Expo. We went to that thing for about 2 or 3 years in a row. as we were starting Bellyache Candy Shop and into Bellyache Records. And it was just so we could go and then go to the free candy room. That's because they have this room where there's all, you grab a bag and you start filling up all this free candy. And we ended up with so much candy. And then there was one year we took the singer from the Grande Nationals from my band, we took him and his wife. And then we went with a couple other friends another year and a couple more friends just so we could get bags of candy. And I remember one time we were standing, we walked up to this display, and it was for, if you're familiar with an artist named Chubby Checker. He was around in the 50s and the 60s. He's the guy that sang the song "Do the Twist." He made the twist dance popular. So if you look that song up, Chubby Checker was every record he put out after that was always some form of the twist. But I'm standing there and I'm talking to this girl. I go, "So how is the twist bar?" Because he did his own candy bar. And she goes, "Well, why don't you ask him?" And then he turns around, he's on his cell phone. He's like, "Hey, how you doing, guys?" And it's like the guy that sang the twist is like, "Here," he's hands us candy bars. And he's like, it's like, when you know who the artist is, it made all the difference that we're standing there like, this is Chubby Checker. This is huge. But it was just things like that. We had so much fun going to the All Candy Expo. It was very exhausting because it's so huge.
Oh. Right.
And now in this day and age, I couldn't imagine myself doing that because I eat much more healthier.
And there's a thing about this chocolate stuff. You can sell them to adults, but you can even sell them to the kids of the kids of the fans and all. So that's a really good thing, Hey, Mom, can you give me this bar, please, please, please? And you're gonna sell a lot.
We set up at a number of large festivals that we would have a Bellyache booth at, and when we'd bring chocolate bars, and those were always like, hey, if it was a slow day, it was warm out, and we weren't selling as many records, there was always the candy bars. And the thing is, they're not cheap to make when you're making them in an environment like your kitchen, which you can do in Michigan. You can make your own stuff. We would sterilize everything. There's wax paper on all over the place, making sure that everything was covered. We're wearing all the proper, head and hand, like gloves and headgear to make sure that we're not like, spreading our germs or anything. But yeah, we did it the right way. But one thing Michelle and I always did, and I still to this day, I do everything the hard way, because that way you get what you want in the end. And even though she's not with the label anymore, I still do everything the same way we did it before, where we used to, like, when we get a record, you can go to a pressing plant and tell them that this is what you want. You send them all your information, all the artwork files, and then they call you in 3 or 4 months and they say, your records are ready, and they ship them out to you, and then you have a finished record. I don't do it that way. Right. I go to the pressing plant. I have them make the record. I go to a separate company to get the jackets made. I go to different places to get everything done. And then once it's all ready, I get it all together and I assemble it myself. You get everything much faster, and I can quality control everything and make sure that there is a download code in every record. There is, everything that needs to go in there goes in there. Because I would have bands come over and we'd have like a record stuffing party. And I would find out after the fact, they put the stickers on crooked, or they forgot to, someone's, I got 5 download codes left. That means out of the 100 records they may have stuffed, they forgot to put something in there. I couldn't work like that anymore. So I just started doing it all by myself. And I feel I sleep better at night when I release a record, knowing that, okay, I know I did everything. Yeah. You want something done right? Do it yourself.
Do it yourself.
Yeah.
There. Yeah. Words of wisdom as well.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, it's fun. It'd be nice to have a team that you can trust to get everything done. But sometimes you're dealing with band people. Some of the people don't want to be there, and some of them they don't care enough. And sometimes these parties would turn into actual parties. So I remember when we were doing this record with the Mugs called Born Ugly, we put a 45 in every copy of the record, like of 2 songs that didn't make it onto the LP. And when we put it out, we're like, how are we going to do this with these other 2 songs? So we put an additional 45 inside, and I had the band sign all the copies. And about halfway to maybe 3/4 of the way through the signing of all the 45s, they were getting bored. So they just started signing each other's names, or they would sign the names of like dead actors or dead sports figures or baseball players. And at first I was like, oh, come on. But then I thought it was funny when people started getting the records and they're looking at it and they're like, Bela Lugosi, like they're looking at like all the names of all these like old actors. Then it became a game to figure out, well, who signed that name. So the fans didn't care so much that it wasn't like, actually Danny's signature or Todd's signature. They thought it was more fun if you got one that had someone else's name in there. So, awesome. But that's when we put out that record. That's when we did the Ugly Mug Bar, and that was a huge night for that record.
Fab. Fantastic. It's so fun and satisfying as well. Funky had some vinyl questions. Go ahead, Funky.
Yeah, I have a lot of vinyl questions. So, is there an album that you've been trying to find for a long time, but you still haven't found it?
The internet has made everything way too easy to find. If we didn't have the internet, I'd have a list a mile long. But I think I have at this point in time virtually everything I've ever been looking for.
Yeah, cool.
And then, then after I overpaid for it on the internet is the one time I'll see a copy walk into whatever store I'm working for at the time. Yeah. I spent 8.5 years at a record store nearby in the suburbs called UHF Records, and we were well known for getting all the cool used stuff, and they still do. Like they still get tons of they find the owner was really good at finding so much of the rare vinyl, and that's how when we opened that store. As friends I am with people from other stores, I know there were people pissed because all of a sudden, while other stores were going out of business, we came along and we're like, nah, we got all the cool shit, and selling new and used. We always made sure to have everything there. And so if there wasn't a time that if I was looking for something and if I went online to find it, I could be guaranteed that sometime within that year, I would still see a copy walk through the door. And since people knew we had rare vinyl, people knew to sell their vinyl there as well. They're like, well, I'm getting rid of my collection. I'm moving to Florida, whatever. They always would come in with all the cool stuff. And so, yeah, I've never, when I was a kid, I always had an ongoing list of everything I was looking for. But now I think I have everything I really wanted.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Awesome.
What is the first record you've ever bought?
Oof. On vinyl?
Yeah.
It was probably the Star Wars soundtrack for the first film. I do know that's one that I know I probably bought with my own money. I was a kid. I was very young. But I know the first cassette tape I ever bought was Pyromania from Def Leppard. That was I know that was that was new at the time, and it was the biggest album when I was a young kid. But I remember distinctly buying that one. Most of the other records I had were probably gifts from people, like birthday or Christmas gifts or something. But I do remember buying the Star Wars soundtrack at a used record store.
Yeah, you're also a huge Star Wars fan. We know that.
I am. Yeah, to me, there's no bad Star Wars, and there's people that they'll disagree with me all day. But you know what? I don't care. It's like I like what I like, and that's how it is, and that's how it should be for anyone. Hey, if you don't like it, okay, whatever. I just don't like when people get in your face and tell you why you're wrong. It's like, well, I'm not wrong. This is what I like. I don't tell someone they're wrong for not liking what I like. I don't care.
Yeah, that's how it should
be.
Yeah, enjoy what you enjoy. That's why I never believed in the terms people talk about guilty pleasures. Like, oh, they don't want you. Some people don't want you to know that they listen to all this. Maybe they listen to a lot of heavy metal, but they don't want you to know that they love the Goo Goo Dolls or something like that. And it's like, I actually love the Goo Goo Dolls. I'm not afraid to admit it because it's not a guilty pleasure. I don't feel guilty saying it. It's like, nope, I love it.
Yeah.
But that's always been a thing. I never understood that. Where I've always been a huge Weird Al fan. Weird Al to me is his career has transcended everybody. He's outlived the people he has parodied, and people are I wouldn't admit I like that. And I'm like, why not? I love it. I'm not gonna. There's no reason not to. To deny it. So I always would tell people just go with what you love.
Yeah. Exactly. I remember Steve Vai saying, "It's not the greatest. What I believe in is the favorites." So yeah. It's one of the things, definitely.
Right, exactly. It's always a good way. It's a good way to be, and you don't have to worry about what other people are thinking or what they're going to say if you like something, a movie or TV show or record or anything like that. Thanks, Ryan.
Fab.
Enjoy your dinner.
Enjoy your dinner. and maybe wine.
Yeah, some wine time, dinner time.
Wine time.
Yeah.
True.
And
So tell us
this,
something about, since we're talking about Ryan, tell us about your work with the Kickstarter campaign.
Yeah, so
Was
pretty
that-
much, I think by now anyone that's been involved with the RGA and have been following like the System 12 guitar method, it was born out of, it's Ryan and Robbie's. Like to me, that was it started with them, and eventually, Ryan was, putting together the team, and I know that Vic had been around for like doing photos. I mean, we've all seen how like all his amazing photos that he's done of like the Cooper Band and with Ryan, and yeah, there he is, looking young as ever. And Ryan wanted to assemble his team of people that he knew would could pull this off, and knowing what I do with the record label, with shipping and in customer service, all of that, he wanted me to be aboard for that part of it, not knowing so much that I do play. I am a bass player, but I have I have more skill to bring to the table when it comes to the shipping and taking care of all that stuff. So that, because there's a lot of things that need to go out, and things can go wrong really fast if you're not careful. So that was like when he brought it to me and said, "This is what we're doing. I'd like you to be part of the fulfillment." Yeah, no problem. I was all about it. That we are at Record Connection. I'm sitting there at crunching numbers, and that was a signing we did at Record Connection in Ohio, Niles, Ohio.
Was that a meet and greet also?
That was a meet and greet. Yep, and that people could come in. We did two separate events there. We did one where it was you meet Tommy and Ryan on one particular night, and then a couple years later we did one with just Ryan. And I was in town for those shows, so we drove over there and we did that. And each night, each time it pulled a good amount of people. It's great to see so many people come out and buying records, excited about meeting Ryan. Ryan always puts on a great meet and a great meet and greet, especially with the Rock and Roll parking lots. So that was that particular one. I liked those, and plus I liked talking to the owner of that shop, because with all my years I've been working in record stores, it's nice to that guy had been doing it for, I'm gonna say his shop's been around for almost 40 years. Possibly 35 to 40 years. And he'd been doing it for so long, but he gets it at this point in time. It's like he's still not like some people. They've owned a shop for a long time. They phone it in, toward the end there, they get kind of to a point where they kind of start slacking. But I saw a shop where a guy, cares about what he's doing. And I was really, I really enjoyed talking to him while I was, from both times we went there. I felt like, by the time I left, I felt like I knew him, because I know that life.
True.
wow.
True. And not only that, you also work with the Rock City Music Company.
Yeah. Working at Rock City. I've been there for it'll be almost two years in January. And the owner, Nick, had been a friend of mine for about a decade. I met him shopping. He was a shopper at UHF Records when I was the manager for that store. And at the beginning of 2019, he had approached me about coming in and like being the operations manager for the business, and then building up the vinyl department. Like that picture I know was taken from the website. That's an older shot. Our store is so full now of gear and equipment and records that it is we're constantly growing, we're constantly changing, but it's he's been in that location for 5 years, and I think with me coming on, like we've really stepped up like the vinyl department. I know within the first year, the sales had more than tripled after I took over. And then I know in this year alone, like since even during the shutdown, we did so much online business while people were in quarantine that I know that our vinyl sales this year are crushing last year's as well. And, I'm really proud of that we can keep doing like that type of thing. Cause Nick's a big record collector. Yeah, thank you. We like Nick's a big record collector like myself, and we have that same collector's disease. Like every day something new gets announced, and we're like, "Did you see this? Oh man, this anniversary edition of this box set or that." And you start having that. You start getting a little bit of that freak out going with like the anxiety starts building up, hoping you're gonna get one because we find out it's very limited edition. So it's our text messages day in, day out revolve around like vinyl
Right.
reissues and releases coming out,
True.
and hoping we can get them
And-
into the store.
Right.
That was a
the
great
crew?
day. Yep, that was
Okay.
that's Geddy Lee from Rush. That was from the event we did last summer. At the last minute,
Ah.
a couple days beforehand, Geddy Lee was doing a tour for this book he had out called Geddy Lee's Big Beautiful Book of Bass. It's this giant coffee table book of all his bass guitars. It is an incredible book. He comes, so we get this phone call, and it was from his manager, and they had one stop, like on this book tour, that they wanted to do a stop in Detroit, and we worked it out where we got him to come in. It was $100 to get in, but you got a copy of the book, and he signed it for you. And when I walked into the office and saw Geddy Lee standing there, and he was fist bumping everyone that he met, but when they said, "Hey, this is Scotty, he's our operations manager, he's a bass player too," his fist turned into a hand. So it turned into a handshake, and I started shaking his hand. I didn't want to let it go because I'm like, I'm hoping there's a transference of, talent right now.
Right.
If I could have as much talent in his pinky nail as a bass player.
May the force be with you.
Yeah, exactly. It was so cool. It was so great to meet him. And I think of this person that wrote all these iconic songs over the years and played all that music, and he's just like standing there. And it's not the first time I met a famous musician, but someone like Geddy Lee isn't the kind of guy you meet every day. And Rush have always been a musician's band. Everyone in that band was very technical in what they did, and they were players, as they call them. And that was such a fun day, because there was on 3 or 4 days' notice, we had over almost 400 to 500 people through the store to get that book signed. And he was such a pro. He signed every one of them in a couple hours flat. It was so cool. But we've done a lot of in-store events. So we had that particular week was such a crazy week, because it started with Geddy Lee. That weekend we had Nita Strauss, and she was her presentation was amazing. It was probably 110 degrees that day, and we were so thankful that the power didn't go out from the heat. And she came out and did her presentation, showing her guitar, playing songs, telling her stories. The store was jam-packed with people. And it was one of the most pro events. We always put on a top-notch event, but Nita brought some next level stuff there. It was like, wow, that was a really cool presentation. And
Rock City Music is one of the highest ranked in the country because of its in-store events as well, because those are really great.
Our in-store events do very well. We pull great crowds for those, and we get a lot of the feedback that we get from the fans, but the artists. We've had artists call us back or send messages saying that was one of the coolest events we've ever done. Earlier this year, the only event we were able to have this year, we had Steve Gorman, the drummer for the Black Crowes. And he was with them during all their years that they were touring, and they were a big band. And he couldn't get over how great our event was, because he was touring for his book that he was promoting. And he said he was doing events where there's 20 people there, and then we had ours, and there was almost 200 people there. And he'd still we've become friends with a lot of these guys after the fact. It's really cool. We've had people. Gary Holt from Slayer has been there a couple times. Bruce Kulick from Kiss. Bruce Kulick and Nick are good friends. The band Blackberry Smoke, Nick's friends with all of them. He's had them at the store a few times, and there's daily text messages. I get to hear about all of it all the time. It's really cool. We're constantly exchanging our stories with all the people that we know in that that are gigging and touring musicians. It's just we can't wait for it to come back.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
It's so disheartening right now, just thinking. I couldn't imagine. I'm so fortunate that I can go back to work 5 days a week and work 40 to 50 hours a week and have a paycheck. When all my friends that were gigging musicians, I've just I want to see this change. We all do, but I can't imagine being in that position.
Right.
Are all you guys working?
It feels great, right?
Are all you guys?
These both are in school.
Okay.
Tell about yourself. So, I'm doing some independent projects right now, as I'm a computer science engineer. So I do a bit of, and also a data scientist. So I'm into coding and all that stuff, all the
Yeah.
geek stuff, which probably everyone would avoid to talk about because it's very technical.
It's always
But
above
yeah,
everyone's head, but thankfully there's people like you that can do it.
Me and Funky, we
thank you
kind
so
of
much.
work with music. We kind of do it. We're both singers, so whenever
Oh yeah,
we have some stuff to put all out on the internet, we do. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's pretty awesome.
that's cool.
Um,
yes.
so if Ken and Becca don't have any more questions, I'd like to start with our funky Q&A.
Cool.
Oh, we do have
Yeah.
many questions, but one there it's from Chris, and we want to ask that. So Chris Victory asks, what's been your most difficult record release, and any of the bestsellers?
I will tell you, difficulty when you're pressing records, when you
Mm-hmm.
send off the music, there's a guy that cuts what they call the lacquer discs. And the lacquer disc,
Right.
that cut has got to be perfect. It's got like the volume has to be right, and everything has to be matched up properly so that when that disc goes, when they go to make a plate of the disc, which actually they stamp the records from, it has to be done in a way that you can get plates back, and when you get a test pressing of the record, hear a lot of crackle and popping in it. And there was one record in particular, this record from Slasher Dave, called Exorcisms. We had to have 2 different people cut the lacquers because we went through 3 or 4 sets of test pressings that all sounded noisy. Like, I was so disappointed. And typically those records, like, if we say this is when it's coming out, that's when it comes out. My pressing plant that works for me in Detroit always delivers. That was the only record that arrived probably about 3 months late because of the problems we were having. There was a point in time where I had to turn around and say, okay, these guys that are cutting this don't seem to be getting what we're doing. So we took it to another guy in Chicago to cut our lacquer masters, a gentleman named Carl Saff. And from that point on, I had him do the last 10 records, and every record sounds awesome. Like, I could even hear the difference sonically once I got the finished version of Exorcisms back. I was so happy. And even though we wanted that record out for Halloween of that particular year, it didn't come out till Valentine's Day because of the problems. That was probably the most difficult that I had to deal with. Thankfully, they're always willing to kind of turn the work around quick. But unfortunately, there was the holiday season in between. And during the holiday season, everyone shut down. So we were losing time. And I always feel bad because the fans prepay for the record. They want to pre-order it so that way they're guaranteed to get a copy. And so that was one where I felt really bad that we just had to keep telling people, oh, it's delayed again. But, this happens in this business. I've watched records get delayed nearly a year because of difficulties in the pressing plants. Wow. So that was definitely probably the most difficult. The bestseller is probably actually going to be another Slasher Dave record called Spook House. It was his first record, and we've done multiple pressings of that record. We've sold out. We've pressed it again. There's a close second with a band called Bars of Gold that are from Detroit. I did a record with them called Wheels, and we sold out of, I believe, it was like 1,500 copies in less than a year of their record. And at the time, they were a band that used to tour around, and they were, I think at that point in time, we're only playing local shows. So we did a lot of online sales with that band, and it went over, really well. And it's a cool record. And then eventually they signed on to a bigger label, and it was great. They put out a record after that. In fact, that label reissued the record that we put out for them. So it's always kind of a cool badge of honor in this business to have a record you released, then have another label reissue it, then you got the original pressing. From Bellyache. So, that was really cool. I'm always happy to see when a band can step up to another level, because if I was at home, and this is what my business was, my only business, things would be different. But I know reality, and so the record label is very much a glorified hobby. I put a lot into it, but I know I need a day job to survive. So if I could go to that, take bands to the next level, that would be fantastic. But I'm happy with what I get to do with these records.
Right. Definitely. Awesome.
Wow.
And yeah, and what goes into making, and it's really, as Vic said, and everybody says, that you are indeed a hardworking guy. So yeah,
Thank you.
Things don't come easy. Definitely.
Yeah. I think in 70 releases, there's definitely a reputation that people know they're going to get a quality record, and they know that the bands, when bands give me the masters for their music, they know that whether it's going to be a 7-inch, like a 45, or if it's going to be an LP, they know that it's going to be quality. They're going to get something that they'll be proud of, for the rest of their life. Once we put that out into the universe, it's out there, and they're proud. Like, I've never had anyone come back and go, "Oh, I wish we would have done this instead." Yeah, there was one record I wish we would have pressed on a different color of vinyl because of the way the artwork looked. It would have worked out perfect, but we went black vinyl for the whole thing because technically black vinyl sounds better than any other color. They make it it's a different substance, so you get better fidelity. So the people that are all about just the sound, they always want black vinyl, and then when they find out something's on colored vinyl or some type of swirled, they're like, nah, But other people that just like to collect, I mean, I like to. I was like that for a long time, but I've played music for so long that my ears aren't good enough anymore just to hear the perfections of black vinyl. So I always buy, like, you'll see pictures I post on Instagram. If I'm buying records, if I get crazy swirl vinyl, then that's cool with me. It's fun to have the collectible version.
Right. You're really fab, And Bellyache Records is not just, it has sold thousands of records, literally, and there's very, very great and many much great music is coming out as well. But in October, as we discussed in the beginning, it's the 70th release is gonna come out probably in the month of October.
That's the plan, as long as nothing goes wrong in the process. But with the number of places that were shut down or backed up from when they were shut down, I have to roll with the punches. If they say, "Hey, we're not going to have this till November 15th," then so be it. Just as long as we get a decent product in the end, I'll be satisfied. I just, again, we do the pre-orders so people can get the color of vinyl they want. I just don't want them, getting, antsy, anxious during the process.
True, definitely. All the best for the new release and all the things with Bellyache Records and all the endeavors with the company and Rock City as well. So
thank you.
That's fine. Yes, definitely.
Thank you.
Secondly is we really look forward to the release, and maybe when the release happens, would you like to join us again for the part 2?
Oh yeah, definitely. When we put that record out, I want to show it off.
Oh yeah,
definitely.
We'd love to host you. We'd love to.
Once I have it in hand, hopefully that will start, will lead the way for more releases. I've been playing it very safe on what I want to put out, and I want us to get back to a point where, I think it was in 2013 and 2014. I think one summer I released like 7 or 8 records. It was every month there was always another release show, another party, another thing going on. That I think that was the year that I put out the Amerisweet EP. It was a whirlwind. Every week I had to be somewhere to put out another record and do a release show. And it was so cool. People couldn't believe it was happening, but the label was doing so well at that time that, I knew when to pull back and go a little bit slower so we didn't end up in debt.
Sure. Wow. Awesome. And we really look forward to having you once again. Thank you so much for sharing all the candies.
We always say that from the moment that the guests do the first episode, the show is yours. So then you can come whenever you want to.
Yeah.
And part 2, it's gonna be amazing.
Oh yeah, totally. That was bringing down the candy bars was sort of a last minute thing. I thought, you know what, that makes good conversation, especially for people that they're interested in records. They may not be interested in collecting them or hearing stories. Like, I can tell stories for days about making records and records that I love and bands that I love and touring and playing in a band for many years. But the candy was something I thought, that's a lot of people at this point in time don't know about it because it's been a long time since I was doing the candy end of it.
Yeah, it was something more, like it gave a taste on the show.
I just wonder how those things still taste.
That's right. We had a delicious show today.
I'm afraid to unwrap them. I might come up with the concept of a new candy bar if I do unwrap it and see what's in there.
That's cool. That sounds awesome. And everybody watching right now, if you want to connect with Scotty, here are his socials. So please note them down. Check out Bellyache Records by going to bellyacherecords.com and follow Scotty on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can always see the updates over there. And we're also going to be in touch with him. And thank you so much, Scotty, for coming on to our show. Yes, there are many things that are yet remaining. We have to talk a lot about records and the funky Q&A, which we shall keep for the part 2. So, thank you so much. Yeah. So thank you so much, Scotty, for joining us. We really had a fun time, and everybody in the audience as well loved you. And we always love you.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, definitely. And by the way, before all of you go, tomorrow on In the Trenches with Ryan Roxie, we have Kyler Clark, photographer of Alice Cooper, and he is the Alice Cooper Insider. And he's going to be on In the Trenches with Ryan Roxie tomorrow at 12 p.m. EST. So don't forget to tune in. 22nd September, 12 p.m. EST, In the Trenches with Ryan Roxie on Ryan Roxie Official. And also on Pink Sock Podcast next Monday. It's going to be a great show.
Yes.
We don't know who it's going to be, or we know, but we won't tell that it's going to be a fun show. So,
very excited.
Yeah. So it's a great fun-filled week for every one of us. So thank you for joining us on the VoiceIt Show today. Keep rocking and see you all guys tomorrow in the trenches. And Scotty, once again, thank you so very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ciao.